It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
You've been busy.
A little bit.
Traveling nonstop.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it in the off season. Go see other countries and have fun. I always make an annual trip to see my best friend that plays basketball overseas. So,
Oh, nice.
Always good times.
Yeah. Where were you just recently?
I was in Turkey, Izmir, Turkey, Istanbul, Turkey. Then I was in Spain, rode to Spain to see the Marines in 82nd Airborne, and then I got to Kosovo as well. Wow. And so it was some good travels, long days.
Yeah.
Days.
What was the highlight of the trip? Was there one?
There was a couple highlights. I love German Shepherds, so they have EOD dogs, which are dogs that detect devices for bombs and different things of that nature. So seeing them, being able to be attacked by one, it was pretty fun. Except for the second.
It couldn't take you down, could it? Let's be honest.
It could.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and actually, there's some video of it almost nipped the back of my leg. So
no.
That would have been a big issue, but. That was fun, and then in Kosovo I got to shoot with the 82nd Airborne team, so we got to shoot some guns with them, a couple ARs and whatnot. But
oh, wow.
it was good times. It was more fun hanging out with them than anything.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, I'm humbled to have you here.
Thank you.
We're excited to hear your perspective on how things have changed with digital and social as a professional athlete. First, I started off introducing who my favorite athletes were when I was a kid, and that was David Robinson, Ken Griffey Jr. Yeah. I'm curious, who did you look up to?
Growing up, I was a big basketball fan. Portland, we only had the Trailblazers, so Kevin Duckworth was actually probably my favorite player to watch.
Yeah.
Damon Stoudemire, who's a hometown guy. Funny story, I actually cried when Kevin Duckworth got traded. So my mom had to deal with that. But I was a big basketball fan. Always loved basketball. Funny enough, I didn't pay attention to football at all.
Yeah, I was going to ask then, how did you get into football then?
Football was, I basically had two sets of friends. So I was in the city, all my friends I went to high school with and middle school with. 8th grade, they asked me to come out, and I decided to stop playing soccer because I played out in Lake Oswego in the suburbs with all this, the AAU teams that they had out there. And so I decided to remove from soccer and played football in 8th grade. Went into high school my freshman year. My mom wouldn't let me play because of grades. She made me focus on school, and once I got a 3.0 my first semester, then I could play sports.
Yeah.
So I got to play basketball, and then the following year I got to play football for the first time in high school. So I kind of went from there.
So you basically terrorized everyone in high school, kids like me, I would imagine, and then you go off to Nebraska.
Yeah.
What was the highlight of your college career in Nebraska?
Highlight of my college career. I would probably say there was a couple, but one that kind of comes first to my mind was beating Colorado at home. Our kicker kicked a 57-yard field goal, and then we went on the next play. That pretty much sealed the game, but the next play, a teammate of mine that actually was my roommate all through college on the road, he tipped the ball. I intercepted it and ran it back in for a touchdown, and kind of ran over the quarterback at the same time. So that was probably one of my highlights. So
you get drafted, you go to Detroit Lions. And I've always wanted to ask a professional athlete this question: is when you show up on your first day, is it like us, where the security may not know you're showing up and it's your first day, and they don't have you on the clipboard kind of thing, or is everyone well prepared you're coming in on your first day?
No, they were very much well prepared.
Okay.
Yeah, I got drafted. I was in New York, so I spent the entire week in New York. My family was there. Some of my closest friends, my agents, my two high school coaches that kind of mentored me and helped me, because sometimes as kids we don't always listen to our parents, but there's a handful of adults that we do listen to. They're all there, and I got drafted that night, and then I flew directly to Detroit. Got to Detroit, took a limo with my family into the facility, and it was kind of interesting because there's a mascot. He's kind of an unbeknownst mascot for the Lions, and he wears this big kind of lionish mane helmet.
Yeah.
So that group was all there to greet me, as well as cameras in the front office and the coaches and whatnot. So we had a press conference and then kind of went from there.
Yeah, nothing like my first job. Like at all.
Yeah, a little bit different. Yeah, a little bit
completely.
different for sure.
So you play there for 5 seasons?
Yeah, 5 seasons.
And then you sign a record-breaking contract with the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And what's the compare and contrast after 5 years, the first day, like expectations and going into Miami?
It's a little bit different because you know what you kind of need to expect. And honestly, the negotiations that took place were kind of months and weeks leading up to it. And as I got down to Miami, my mindset went from like, it's a new experience. What am I gonna what do I have to open my eyes up to where it's like my head's kind of down and I know like I'm gonna take care of the football stuff, and then I need to go figure out where I'm gonna live and do those different things and get my life kind of organized to where coming out of college, it's like, all right, what am I gonna do? Where am I gonna live? But also, what is this? What is that? And what's the next thing? I have to answer all these different questions. I kind of already have some of those answers as I'm moving to a new place.
Got it. Great. So you spend 4 years in college, full 4 years, 8 years, 8 seasons now in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's about how long social has been around and mobile devices have been. What have you seen change because of social and mobile devices as an athlete?
It's changed tremendously. I was just actually having a conversation with somebody earlier today, and it's funny because there was really a computer that everybody wanted to go to, and like that's how people. When I was in college, Facebook was just coming out, and everybody only could be on college. You had to be on a college campus with a college email address, and that's how you kind of communicated with people. And then it obviously opened up from there. But it was always on the computer. So with a mobile device now, I can be on the go and communicate with people. And there's different ways. It's a lot more accessible, user-friendly, and different interfaces that makes it a lot more simpler from when it was when. And I was never a kid that was sitting in a room that just wanted to sit on a computer. But in college, I did. When I come home, the first thing was like, I checked, did a girl hit me back on on my Facebook Messenger and stuff like that. So that's kind of the difference now. I can be on the go and still check or whatever. But I can't check anymore because I have a girlfriend.
So as you've seen this kind of shift, how have you changed your habits, I guess, with social media and mobile?
I think you're just more aware. Obviously, being in the limelight, even though I don't necessarily consider myself a celebrity, I do understand that in some ways you can be a target, some ways people want to just take pictures of you. And it was funny, we were actually in Carolina this past season playing the Panthers on Monday Night Football. We always go out for dinners as D-line, and there was a huge fan, and he just kind of barged in the room and like was taking pictures with it, which wasn't bad because he was harmless. But that's kind of things that you have to be aware of, and those things are going to be obviously posted within seconds. And so obviously you not saying anybody would be mean to him, but if somebody was mean to him, he had a bad experience with us, that would be posted in 2 seconds. And obviously everybody knows that we're in Carolina, and it just kind of snowballs from there. So things like that I think that's how it's evolved and changed over the years.
And how do you think, I guess when you decide to post things or interact with fans, what is that lens that you have when you go?
I think I have multiple lenses. I think I have the lens of being an athlete and playing football. I also have the lens of being a business entrepreneur, for lack of better words. I also have the goofy, fun side of me when I'm with my friends, just hanging out. Like we went live on Instagram when I was in Turkey for the Super Bowl. I really wasn't even doing it. It was my best friend that had the camera most of the time. And I actually didn't want to do it, so he actually stole my phone and got on. And it actually ended up being a lot of fun. And it just kind of depends on, I would say, my particular mood and actually what I'm doing, and kind of going from there.
Do you ever catch yourself, like, based on that mood, like, oh, I shouldn't do this right now kind of thing? Or
I would say there's definitely times that you don't want to post. I always remove myself from, like, when I'm no cussing and profanity and things like that, just being respectful. Obviously, there's kids that are watching and things of that nature, but also I think there's also just a piece of, I like to keep certain things private, and I don't always want to share every inch of my life in every moment.
Yeah. And a few questions ago, you talked about your business ventures outside. What are some that you're in right now?
I'm in a handful of business opportunities. I think probably the most notable one that I've kind of shared and made public was Ember Technology, which is a temperature-controlled mug for coffee and tea. I think the overall company is going to be amazing, just from the simple fact that there's more things that are coming out. One actually that's coming out in 2019 I'm super excited about is the baby bottle. Everybody has this the kind of archaic way of putting it in the microwave and then testing it on their hands and kind of going from there. But now you have a device that can tell you within seconds while you're half asleep and the baby's screaming they want milk, and it beeps to you and says it's at 98 degrees or 98.5, and now you can give it to the baby. You don't have to worry about them burning themselves or anything of that nature. So I think there's a lot of cool things with that company that I've been able to not only invest in my time and energy as an advisor, but also my money.
Why that company, or why now also?
That company really because of the founder. There's a guy named Clay Alexander that is just an amazing person. I got to sit with him. It was 2 years ago when we actually went and played an LA team, the Rams. I think it was like midway through the 2016 season. I sat and had dinner with him, and we really just hit it off. And it came through a connection of a mentor of mine. And really just seeing his vision and how passionate, and seeing his track record. He created an LED light bulb and sold it to GE, and he's done some amazing things. So being able to be with a strong person like that, and he's yet so humble and hardworking, and he could really just be at home or be on an island because of how wealthy he is. So just kind of being attached to somebody like that and seeing their vision, and then being able to work alongside them.
Yeah. So I would imagine you get asked to do a lot of business opportunities or marketing campaigns. How do you evaluate what's right for you?
I'm very fortunate. I've got some great mentors, some people you may know of, some people you may guys never have heard of, and a lot of my deals come through them. Every now and then there'll be opportunities that come through different sources, but I have a vetting process that I go through, a team that I have kind of assembled, for lack of better words. And I go and take those opportunities to them, especially if I don't have a great understanding of it. And even if I do have a great understanding, I want to hear of somebody else's thought process because of things that I may not think of. And I even sent it to my friend overseas because he has a lot of time on his hands between games and his travels, just to hear his opinions, even though he's playing basketball and has his own career from that standpoint, because he makes me think of other things that I may not be thinking of on my own. But he also knows how I think and how I'm wired and whatnot, because we've been knowing each other since 4th grade. So just a combination of that. And then if I don't have anybody that's currently in my camp, then I'll go and find somebody that's an expert in that particular field that usually then comes from a connection that I know of.
Got it. And when you when brands come to you and you kind of evaluate them and you feel it's a good fit for you, how do you want to work with them? Like, what is that, like, what, in an ideal world, like, what is that partnership like with you and them?
I think it's very key, exactly what you said. I want to create a partnership. I want to be I think the best relationship from a marketing standpoint is a give and take relationship. I'll always go back to the company that I probably have done the most with, which is Nike. And just, I think in part because I'm from home. I'm home in Portland, Oregon, and that's where they're based, obviously in Beaverton. But I'm there each and every day, and I get to see their visions, and they understand my visions, and we get to have a lot of conversations about that. And it's not necessarily them just saying, all right, this is our campaign, and this is how we're going to go about it, and this is how you can fit in, and this is how we're going to go. It's more so a conversation that we sit down, identify this is the vision that we want to go with, and how do you see yourself fit in this? These were our thoughts. Do you agree with them? Do you disagree with them? What would you change? And different stuff like that. If you actually look at that video earlier with Snow Day with Nike, so it was mind-boggling that even the director even asked me, but we were sitting in that, doing that. It was myself and Gronk, and he said, what do you think about saying touch or tackle? And I was like, well, I think I should be the one that should say tackle versus it being Gronk. And I said that from a defensive standpoint, and he changed it on the spot. And I've only been able to do that with certain organizations, and Nike is just probably one of the best examples of it. And obviously, it came out that way.
Got it. And do you see that changing over time, where more organizations will start thinking that way differently and like working with athletes, or do you still feel it's kind of like hey, Sue, here is a campaign. We think you'd right fit. Say this.
I personally believe that companies have changed in some respects. I think it depends on the ability for them to be nimble or not. Just depending on what their particular focus is and if they want to do this and if they're really bullish on this, they probably won't change. But I think more so than not, a lot of people in their companies will sit down with the athlete versus just saying, this is what we want you to do, and kind of go from there.
Yeah. And you also did an Xbox campaign that we didn't show where it actually played off your personality of who you are, and it actually plays off Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch and a few others. Was that process similar, or what was that process?
Yeah, that process was very similar, and it was a great one at that, because things actually changed on the spot there as well. We had the overall vision, talked about all the different frames, especially with all the different athletes that were involved in there, and it was more of a collaboration versus just saying, all right, this is what we're going to focus on. We had the parameters that we needed to stay in within, so everybody could obviously have their particular spot, and there were multiple pieces because it was chopped up in. There was a full run, and then obviously there were ones for kind of regional pieces for different games and stuff like that. But it was very similar to that, and really, I think the great part about that was that I got to see another personality of mine that I have. So a different part of my personality where you get to see a funner side, more laughable side, and joking and kind of making fun of myself, for lack of better words.
And in those meetings with those brands and other brands that you have, what have you noticed as your perspective, or that you bring to there that they may not have considered? So as a professional athlete and you as a person, what do you bring that maybe the director or like the marketing people never would have thought of?
I think they look at me a little bit different from a standpoint of that I can put myself in their shoes and have that vision, because I have some wants to be in their particular shoes and direct things and have that piece. So that's where they allow me to take part in those exercises versus just saying more of a dictatorship.
Got it. Yeah. And moving forward, I don't know if you're working on anything right now, but are you partnering in that similar way right now with those brands, or are those other things coming up down the pipeline?
Yeah, I have. I definitely have, and that's where I've looked at. There was a conversation that I had with a company I'll kind of keep nameless recently, about a week ago, and understanding their goals and what they wanted to do, and bringing them ideas, and they were really excited about that because they didn't think of those things, and being able to have that access, because I think especially in season when you have partners that are part of the team and also you're using having the athletes on the team as well, they're a little shy of doing stuff around the games, and because the games are so important, and obviously the coaches and the focus and all those stuff. But I think there's ways that you can structure it to where both people can benefit from it, and it's a really special experience. I mean, I love meeting and talking to people on the sidelines and before the game starts, because I'm not stressed. That's like the most non-stressed time that I'm stressed and focused and head down during the game, but prior to the game, like, I have no weight on my shoulders because I'm just warming up, I'm having fun, I'm dancing around, and you guys see that all the time.
Yeah. Recently we had Laila Ali speak up in our Seattle office, and she talked about the transition of a professional athlete to life outside of being a professional athlete. Yeah. And it seems like more athletes are doing that sooner now. What's your take? Like, why is that? Why are we seeing that phenomenon?
I think there's two things. I think the first one is because people understand that they have a great platform, and they have the ability to open a lot of doors while they're playing, or participating in what they have what's created their particular limelight. And I think that's wise, because when the ball or whatever it is kind of stops for that particular person, it's usually harder for them to get into other and open doors for themselves and get into these rooms. Obviously, you have a lot less time because you're focused on your main craft and your main job, but also people will forget about you. And it's funny when people ask you, do you regret, and does it bother you? Do you have time? Does it irritate you when you have to take pictures? And I was like, no, not at all, because there's going to be a day where people aren't going to ask me for my picture.
Yeah.
And so I'm soaking it in, and I'm embracing that while I have the opportunity to, and making somebody else's day, because I'll be 40 and people will look at me, oh, you're just a big guy and old. So that's how I kind of look at it. And I think also the second piece would be is that people and athletes understand that they can compartmentalize their main job as well as have themselves create something else for themselves to roll right into, because really you can take this time to figure out what you want to do. And so you can try a bunch of different things, and then as you get and pinpoint what's the perfect opportunity for you and what you want to dive into, then you can make those processes and make those connections and kind of go from there. And for me, I've always kind of had a similar vision, or a pretty clear vision of where I wanted to go, but I've learned a lot on the road, and I've opened my eyes up to different things and that I'm into now. Like at first I really wasn't into tech, but I'm getting more into technology now.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit about we talked a little bit about fan interactions a little bit. How, in the digital world, how do you deal with that as a whole? Like, I hear a lot of like, oh, there's negative comments and you just kind of shrug them off. And I'd imagine maybe you still read them and they're still there. Like, how do you deal with all the positive and the negatives of interactions?
Yeah, I get a good amount of negative comments, especially when I play a team up north. But honestly, you really laugh at it. Sometimes I look at it and it's like, these kids are just super young and just don't know any better. And really just don't pay attention to it. The adults, I kind of feel bad for them. I wish they were focused on, I'm assuming they have something better to focus on, but some of them don't. But I don't always read everything, and I've heard there's great opportunities within the systems where you can actually filter, and some of those things never even get to you. And so I've had teammates that have done that for their particular selves, but for me, it's kind of fuel to the fire. It gives me a little, especially when you're doing it right before a game. It gives me a little extra juice, to say the least.
Little edge.
Yeah.
As we think more about communities, and you have a pretty large base on your platforms, what is unique about your communities that you found of your fans as a whole? Do they just know you for performance, or do they know you for your foundation and the other things that you do also, or have you seen that community change kind of like over time?
The community is definitely changed over time. I think it was, I'm a little bit of, because of my engineering background, analytics. I look at them and I'm curious to them. There's a company that I know of that does it and can kind of scrape the information, and I was just curious to see it, and like, I didn't know that people in UFC were attracted to watching the things that I do. I see some of the correlation because of obviously the hitting and different stuff like that from the sports, but even people that follow Ronda Rousey like to follow me. And I didn't know that, and I found that out, and so I was curious. But then even just I think probably things that surprised me a little bit is even when I post food. Like, people are really interested in what I'm doing with my food and how I'm doing stuff. So it kind of throws you off a little bit. But it's interesting to me, and I like learning. So the more and more I can understand it, I think the better off. And you see where your kind of community goes, because Nebraska was really where my following started because of my university and me going to school there and having a great career there. And then obviously going to Detroit, that community, blue collar, and kind of going from there, and then now in Miami, also being back home on the West Coast in Portland. So I'm kind of all over the map, and it kind of comes together. And even Texas, I've never really lived there, but because of that game that I had at Texas Stadium, I've got a lot of Texas fans and people that go to UT and have just lived in that area, in that Dallas area. I come across people and they say things to me. It's like, that was just an amazing game, and that became from school, but also because I was just playing in that particular state, and as well as the Cowboys. So, but yeah,
that's actually really interesting. I never personally thought about, as you move, you carry those fans with you, and they kind of keep with you, and based off what those cities are, like that makeup of those people are different. They're still your fans. So you still get a lot of I'm imagining you have a ton of fans still from Detroit and all these other places, and they still say positive things and still reach out to you.
Yeah, for sure. Especially Detroit. Detroit is a great fan base, and I'm actually there quite a bit because of business and my mentors that are still there. So I run into people all the time, and it's always feels good when people say like, man, they should have never let you go and things like that. So definitely always appreciate it.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're running close to time. I wanted to do a fire round with you.
Okay.
Do you know what a fire round is?
I'm shooting some questions at me.
I'm gonna shoot some questions. You gotta take you just gotta make the first answer. It's really easy.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. My mom told me not to drink coffees, but I do it.
But you still do it?
Yeah, it's for health reasons. So
yeah,
we
of
can
course.
get further
She didn't want you
later.
playing football either.
Yeah, she really did.
Ducks or beavers?
Beavers.
Okay. Football or American football or global football? Oh, okay.
Global football.
Rock or rap?
Rap.
Tribe Called Quest or Migos?
Migos.
Tyson or Ali?
Ali.
Bitcoin or gold?
Blockchain.
Oh. Don't worry, I got a better one down here.
Okay.
Game of Thrones or Stranger Things?
Neither.
Okay. Do you watch TV?
A little bit. I mean, I like documentaries more than anything, but every now and then I'll get some TV in there.
Your favorite Italian restaurant or your mother's jerk chicken?
Oh, you're killing me. I have to go with my mom.
Okay.
But, I mean, I just ate at Carbone.
Okay. Nice. Good choice. Last one. Who's more intimidating, Warren Buffett or Tom Brady?
Neither one are intimidating. Warren Buffett's like a father. I mean, he speaks to me like a father when I have conversation with him, so he's definitely not intimidating. But I'm not afraid of Brady by any means.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did too, about the transformation that's happening and the opportunities we have at brands and as athletes, frankly, in this new world with mobile and social platforms. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
I appreciate everybody coming. This is a great opportunity, so thank you.
Yeah. And then, so I'm going to have my Oprah moment. So if you look under your chairs, there should be like a magnet or something underneath it. We're giving away some Ember mugs.